been looking forward to this next interview for some time now. I want to welcome to the studio. He's with the American Red Cross now. At the time, he was with the National Guard. Ed Bush was inside the Superdome. Last man out the dome, basically.
Pretty much.
When it came to the shelter of last resort during Hurricane Katrina. Ed, welcome to Talk 107.3. How are you, man?
Good morning. I'm good. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you on here. We took some time debating whether or not we were going to lean in on the 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah.
Because and you were actually a part of that decision because the Nat Geo documentary really brought back to mind just how awful that was. Just the stark images of bodies floating in water, the overcrowding at both the dome and the convention center. You forget that time heals all wounds.
It was my first thought as well. I was excited to start watching, and then 15 minutes or so into episode 1, I was like, okay, we're gonna pause.
Yeah.
I'll resume this maybe tomorrow, because my first thought was, oh, I'd forgotten how bad it was.
Yeah,
and it all just comes rushing back.
Can you close that chapter mentally? Do you even want to?
I don't think so. That's a great question, because based on what I do now, I'm still in the disaster response business.
Yeah.
There are a lot of my friends who were part of the Katrina recovery response in the Guard who are now also still in emergency response.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, because you would think we would have had enough of that after Katrina.
Right.
And just to move on to something completely different. Yet here we are. So I don't think I want to completely close it. I want to compartmentalize it.
Yes.
Because Katrina stories are the ones that are going to get me choked up and get me emotional. But I don't think I want to seal that off. I think it's defining who I am.
Well, we'll revert back to the documentary in a little bit.
Yeah.
And you were a big part of the documentary as well. But let's start back let's begin the story. A little bit about yourself. Where you from? How'd you end up being, the guy on the scene in the dome?
Yeah, so born in Chicago, grew up in Wisconsin, met a Southern girl from Louisiana at my first military school. Story about a boy and a girl, moved to New Orleans and got married.
Yeah.
And then never left. Yeah, we've been married and I've lived in Louisiana now 32 years. Brought three kids here. So then they all say y'all. So I think we're natives now. Yeah, well, great opportunity to join the Louisiana National Guard at a young age, full-time for the Guard, and you can't really spend a day in the Louisiana National Guard without cutting your teeth on a disaster. Guard has a huge role in Louisiana responding to disasters. So, yeah, pretty early on, I got exposed to disaster response, and when Katrina hit, I was the Deputy Public Affairs Officer, so tried to just work with the media as much as we could just to tell them what the Guard was doing and get the story straight and the facts straight and all that. So when the Superdome opened up pretty last minute as a shelter of last resort, I had someone from my team drop me off at the Superdome because the Guard was there starting to do that initial entry stuff, and the media showed up wanting to know, hey, what's the Guard doing? And so that's time for me to go to work. And off we go.
Okay, so you get to the Superdome. What was the Guard doing?
Yeah, it was largely just helping to assist with screening people into the dome, which really meant, hey, you can't bring weapons, and it was pretty much that. Because we just wanted to get, and there was a lot of people in line. So just assisting with that and helping to get people situated once they came in. Had a loose plan on where we wanted to put people and where you wanted to put families and where you wanted to put people with babies and infants and all of that. For the most part, everyone just kind of sat in the stands. So just working with the dome, coordinating with them and saying, how do we want to do this? Because there's 30,000 people coming this way.
Right. And the dome's a big place. There's a lot of rooms. There's a lot of area that's not, we're posted up on the 35-yard line. There's a lot of Superdome that's not that.
Yep.
Which when you think 30,000 people in one shelter, that's huge. But the dome, I mean, it's ginormous.
Yeah, and it's funny looking back. We had representatives from the NFL there, representatives from the Superdome there, and the rules that were initially, stay off the field. Let's try to keep people in the stands. Let's stay out of the boxes, stay out of the media areas. Yeah, all that went away 3 days into it once everything had changed.
Well, okay, and as far as the shelter of last resort is concerned, that was, I mean, I would guess the initial plan would have been based off of let the storm roll through and then everybody go back home. things changed when 80% of the city goes underwater.
Right.
Which meant y'all were going to be there longer.
Yeah, and we didn't. That's where you really, the viewpoint from the dome was, hey, we survived the storm, and everybody was in a pretty good mood. You had the panel come off the roof, but by and large, it was successful. We rode out the storm, and everyone in here is safe.
Yeah.
And then we started to see the water rising from our vantage point outside. A lot of people were immediately wanting to go and to leave, and we didn't forbid anyone from leaving, certainly, but we told people, be safe, because there's probably a good chance you might end up back here because we don't know what the conditions are outside. So, yeah, we could see water rising and watch cars disappear from view, and at that time we didn't know where that was all coming from. We had a hunch, but we had no idea how bad it was going to be.
You said you had a loose plan going in. How do you morph? How do you change? How do you shift on the fly? And as that liaison, how do you keep the people not from revolting?
Yeah, I think that's the trick of all leadership at all levels of go with your plan, but be prepared to pivot as needed. And we had some good people there in the Superdome that were really good at that. And I think it's pretty important early on to keep it simple, and let's figure out the very, very basics of, okay, if we can't leave here for a while, then how long can we stay, and what do we need to do to extend that visit? So, yeah, your objectives get dramatically simpler when the conditions have dramatically and significantly changed around you, and now you're just trying to keep people safe and keep people alive, and the follow-on things start to happen in real time because a lot of times you don't have the information that you need.
Right. We got Ed Bush with us. He was with the National Guard during Hurricane Katrina, and basically last man out the dome before it was all said and done. Hey, start to finish, how long was it before the dome was cleared?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking a little over a week. By the time it's fully all clear and we can get all the equipment out of there, it seemed an eternity for certain, for everyone who was there from start to finish.
Do not worry about getting dark or gross or whatever. How bad did it get?
Yeah, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, which is an odd thing to say, because all you heard was the worst of how bad it was. The living conditions were horrible, for certain. You've got 30,000 people, and then you've got double that population. So I think we were pushing 40,000, 50,000 at the peak, and there's no running water and there's no bathrooms. So I mean that's the first thing is, how are you living with that as a reality?
Right.
So of course the air became unbreathable. It was stagnant. I'll never get the smell out of my nose.
Right.
And yet there we all were. So it was really, really bad. But at the same point, you saw people hanging in there through all of that and bonding and holding each other and getting through it together. So to me, that was the most remarkable, which is why I say it was the best of times and the worst of times, because I have examples of the most caring examples of humanity just taking care of each other through the worst of times. I got to see and live firsthand the power of people just pulling each other through, which was remarkable.
Now let's add in the media and talking with them, because this is where it's tough. The national media, international media doesn't want to hear about the story of those helping each other pull through. They've got the stark images of what looks like a third world country at the time, and that's the story they want to tell. How do you tamp that down while telling the full story?
You can't. Is the takeaway lesson for me. It becomes so big that you're just doing damage control. Still today, I tell people, I was in the Superdome during Katrina, and they gasp.
Yeah.
And I immediately say, well, it wasn't all that. I mean, it was bad. And then they kind of lose interest. So the reality of it is, once the story is so big and so bad, you can't undo that. Which to me, I think, why still to this day, part of why I'm here is let's just do the best we can to get it right. So you can try to patch it up, but yeah, you just have to peck at it.
All right. One of my favorite quotes of all time is a Mark Twain quote. A lie can get halfway around the world before the truth can get its pants on. There were stories of a lot of crime, a lot of rape from within the dome. Did any of that actually happen?
So here's my favorite fact. We had more babies born in the dome than we had people die in the dome. And that blew my mind. But I would see a physician, one of the many physicians who were there, and they were all set up in the arena, and that became the medical center. And I would see him where we would stop and get coffee, or he was outside having a smoke, and I was like, "How's your day?" And he's like, two babies today." So I kind of lost count, but I know we're tracking. We had 5 people die in the dome, 1 overdose, 1 suicide, and 3 of them they just weren't in good health.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 8 babies born in the dome that I know of. Come to find out, it's a phenomenon. People. A significant traumatic weather event induces labor, and people weren't supposed to have their baby, and now they're having their baby. And that blows people's mind. And to me, that's my favorite way to answer that question.
Positive. I mean,
Yeah.
it's still tragic, but it's if you could pull any kind of silver lining out of it, that would be it.
The other story that I like to tell that kind of addresses the question of tell me about all the crime. And all day, every day, we would just walk around, and me and my team, and talk to people. And me and my team became aware of a young man who'd been beaten up pretty bad. He was in a bad place. What happened to him? And basically, we were told we caught him trying to put his hands on a little girl. So to me, the takeaway was the people in the dome were putting up with any of that foolishness. They were in there with their families and their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of set the rules of conduct, which were, we know there's a lot of people in here that might not be of the best interest but we're not putting up with any of that foolishness. So it was kind of some street justice.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me smile, and I was sort of proud of him because I was like, that's the way it's got to be.
Sure.
So yeah, there wasn't this lawlessness inside the Superdome because the families and the people inside the dome weren't putting up with that.
Unbelievable
Yeah.
stuff. Well, we're going to take a break here in about 2 minutes from right now. We're going to come back for a good 4 minutes on the back end to clear, put a bow on a couple things. I do want to ask you about the way that the National Guard was perceived through the lens of the camera.
Yeah.
The perception was from the outside looking in like a heavy military presence.
Yeah.
Keeping everything on lockdown, like it was more of a invader type of, than it was a cooperative type of situation. What were the relationships really like inside? Did you have to be heavy-handed?
Nowhere near as much as it was portrayed. There were times where it was you're like, ooh, this is a little bit dicey. It feels a little tense tonight. But part of the challenge and part of the problem was we had so many National Guard units coming from across the country, and God love them and God bless them for coming because we needed all the help we could get. But they were also kind of misinformed. The environment that they were walking into was different than what it actually was on the ground from what they were told. So they came braced with mission number 1 was to lock it down and provide law and order. As we kind of missed the humanitarian side of an opportunity, but they did great. But when you wind up the military and you put them in action and you give them weapons, you put them on the street and you say, go restore law and order, they're going to do that.
Right.
So you get what you pay for sometimes.
All right, we're going to take a quick break right here. We'll come back on the back end. We've got Ed Bush with us. He was in the National Guard and basically last man at the Superdome after Katrina, and it was a shelter of last resort. Let's talk about getting buses to the people, continuing that message not just with the people that were there, but with the rest of the world as well.
Yeah.
Ed Bush, we will continue next. We got just a couple minutes left with Ed Bush. He was with the National Guard in the wake of Katrina. He was in the Superdome in the wake of Katrina, and messaging was his job.
Yep.
And that was difficult when A, communication was damn near impossible.
Yep.
B, you got up to 50,000 people that you're trying to, I don't want to say corral, but you're helping them in every way possible to make sure that they're okay while they're there, but they're getting out of there too. So let's talk about the buses.
Yeah, and it became the number one fact that everybody wanted to know because it represented when are we getting out of here? How are we getting out of here? When are the buses coming? When are the buses coming?
Yes. So you've got to convey a message that you've got no idea if it's going to come to fruition.
That's true. Yeah, because we had nothing to do with how the buses were getting to the Superdome. Inside the dome, we had the plan of where do you want them to pick the people up and what's the best way to get the people there. So it became a matter of what street had the least water. All streets had some water, but we found a path, and we found it by just walking around. where the buses could line up. It's a pretty long straight shot. The water wasn't too deep, and we walked people through the New Orleans Center, from the Superdome through the New Orleans Center. Take a left here, take a left here, take a right here, go down this out this street, and there was the buses. And it worked. And
So headed towards the river.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It just so happened that was a good path for as many buses as possible to line up on. And that's where we started walking people through. But it took days to get to that point. So to your point, I had to tell people we're working on it.
Yeah.
They're working on it. Hang in there. And for some time, that was the message of the day. Hang in there.
Yeah. How difficult is that to say, like, let's say you tell them the buses will be here, on X day, buses don't show up by that day.
So, and I never did that. Right?
Okay.
And I knew that early on. I wasn't going to commit to a specific day. I would tell them this is what we're working towards. The talking points of the day tended to be very simple. Number one, if you feel like you're trapped, you can leave at any time. Number two, we do have enough food and water to get through here for weeks. No one's going to starve or not have enough water. Mm-hmm. Number three, I'm from here. You're from here. We're all in this here together. None of us are leaving until the last of you is somewhere safe. And number four, I assure you, we're working on a plan to get you out of here as fast as we can. And I will let you know the details of that. And that tended to be the talking points of the day, which were kind of the four big fears.
I've got about a minute and a half left. I got to touch on that Nat Geo documentary, which you were a huge part of. There was a lot of commentary about not being able to leave. You said twice now in this conversation, people were free to leave if they wanted to.
So that became a really, really important part. We didn't want anyone to feel like they were trapped.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of time explaining to them, making sure that they knew that the city was under our curfew. There was a chance that if they were out and about, that they would get picked up and be brought back here again. But if you absolutely need to leave because you feel trapped, then go out Gate M and you're free to go. Mm-hmm. That became talking point number one because we didn't want anyone to feel like they were trapped. We didn't forbid anyone from leaving. Why would we? But we knew that there was a very, very good chance that they were going to require saving again and be brought back here again. So a lot of people didn't know how bad it was. So sometimes I would ask someone who came on day 3 to talk to someone who arrived pre-storm. And I was like, tell them what your house looks like. Because the people who came in pre-storm didn't know how bad it was. And sometimes it was as simple as someone saying, man, there's nothing out there. Right. It's all gone. And you would see the look of dismay on the person who was hoping that his house was still okay, realizing, no, it wasn't. And suddenly the urgency to leave wasn't quite what it was. But yeah, we didn't forbid anyone from leaving.
But I would imagine the want to put eyes on, even if it's lost,
yeah.
that
everybody wants to go look at your stuff.
Right.
For some people, it's a lot more stuff. For some people, it's like, I don't know where family members are.
Yeah.
I don't know if my mom made it out. I don't know where my grandpa is.
Well, I don't know if they're 8 blocks up the street at the convention center.
And all that breaks your heart.
Yeah.
All day, every day. And there was a lot of hugging and a lot of crying. And a lot of time, in real time, people came to accept the fact that what they thought maybe they had is gone. And I would just call on people to say, tell them what it's like out there.
Yeah.
And then those people would hang around.
And that's where we got to call it. Ed Bush, thank you so much for a couple minutes this morning,
great.
man. Fantastic stuff.